to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another video. Today, I am going to be talking about the book Haven't Killed in Years. Haven't Killed in Years by Amy K. Green. So, this particular book, I really thought that by the premise it was going in a whole different direction than it actually went. Okay, well, let's look at this blurb and tell you guys what it's all about. So, Maren Haggerty, the daughter of a notorious serial killer, was the only child when they arrested her father. Ripped from her home and given a new identity, Maren disappeared. 20 years later, Gwen Tanner keeps everyone at a distance, preferring to satirize the world around her rather than participate in it. It's for her safety and theirs. But when someone starts sending body parts to her front door, the message is clear. I know who you are. So it goes on to say that to preserve her secrets, Gwen must hunt down the killer, a journey which immerses her in the twisted world of a true crime fandom and makes her confront her past for once and for all. So immediately, I put two and two together, with the fact that Maren and Gwen were the same person, which that is the case. She was given a new identity, because she was a young kid at the time that, all of that unfolded. So when the story starts off, Gwen, present day, she goes on a date, and when she comes home, there is, a body part, I think it's an arm, that's been left in a box like a gift on her front door. I mean, she doesn't know what it is until she opens it. And it's very coincidental that the same day that she receives this arm is also the day that her mom is released from prison. Like her dad, he's serving a life sentence, right? But the mom got 20 years for aiding and abetting because, that's just how it works. Like, I know that there are a lot of times that people who are in relationships, whether they're married, they're living together, they're dating or whatever, or even just friendships or siblings or whatever, a lot of times you can be in a relationship with someone and maybe not know that they have a secret life, depending on how well they, cover it up. But it just seems really hard that if you are married to someone or you live with them day in and day out, and if you guys are close and, keep a similar schedule, that you haven't found some inconsistencies somewhere, especially if years have gone by. You have had to have noticed something in their behavior or something, right? But it could also be because as we go, through the story and we learn more about Gwen / Maren's past, it could have been that, the mom was afraid of him. So she just turned a blind eye to whatever she thought was going on. We learn about Gwen's past, right? Through like little anecdotes and things that she shares, as the narrator. But then there are chapters that delve into her past. So her dad, number one, used to take her with him when he would do unalivings. And we're talking about, she was like an elementary school age kid. And I think the first time it happened, she didn't really understand what she was seeing or what was going on. But he did it enough for her to eventually understand and come to know, oh, he's out here taking people's lives. And it was just crazy because, like, he had this thought like that he was doing something good for the world or whatever. And from what, I could discern, it wasn't like it was some Dexter type stuff. Oh, he learned that this person, was really bad and they were doing all this stuff. It was kind of indiscriminately, and he just wanted her to witness it and I guess in some kind of way be a part of it. That was his bonding with her. But after she was taken from her parents, there's, she ended up, because, to witness all that violence, it has an impact on you. Okay, I'm gonna just say that. But because she was so young when she was taken from them, instead of just like being put in the system and trying to get her into a normal home or, with foster parents, she went to this like institution, right, for kids with problems. And that's when we, get those chapters and kind of what led up to who she is today, because she is very detached. And I think that a lot of it had to do, number one, with her not wanting people to know who she was and who her father was in the past or whatever. But I think another part of it was that she felt she was capable of hurting people because, genetically, and because she just at some point was just so apathetic about it. Like, she didn't cry. She didn't get upset when she saw it happening. She wasn't scared of her dad, not in the way that she should have been, right? So she had, kept people at arm's length. So she meets this guy named Dominic. And as morbid as it sounds, he does these things that he calls murder tours, right? And people get in his van or go with him as he drives by and gives them history of houses either where murders occurred or where the serial killers lived. Okay. And her father is pretty infamous. Think about it. Most serial killers that were notorious, like, their names. When you hear the name, what they did. And her father in that area was that person. And so Dominic has kind of become an expert on him, so much so that he has even visited her father in prison. And Gwen doesn't live, like, obviously in the town where she grew up or the neighborhood, but she's not too far as like you could get there by car. She's far enough away where people don't make the connection in her everyday life, but close enough where, she met somebody who drives over there to that area. So anywho, as we, get to know more of the backstory, more body parts keep coming to Gwen's house. And turns out there is a connection to the body parts, because what happens is, like, let's say the arm that she got when she went on her date, she's watching the news and they find this person who's missing an arm, and she happens to know the person. Okay. She happens to know the person. And I told you, like, her mom had got out of jail the day that started happening. So she goes to pay her a visit, to see what's up. Are you leaving arms? And her mom didn't even know where she lived. So let's just put that out there, because she hadn't been in touch with her mom or her dad. She, just no contact. But anyway, the pieces start to fall together, and Gwen realizes that this is somebody who knows me and who knows me well, because they are targeting people who I know, who were around back then and, maybe had their hands in stuff that was going on. So from that standpoint, just hearing that, that's a page turner. You're like, because you want to know, well, who was the man? Who was the lady? Well, who is sending this? And I will tell you, there are so many characters introduced in this book, okay? Because you got Gwen / Marin. There's a young kid who, she's probably in her late 20s, if that old, but there's another guy who's a little bit younger. He works at this pottery place that she goes to all the time, and they've become fast friends. Then you got the guy who's doing the murder tours, who she ends up, I think initially she was trying to get close to him because he had gone to see her dad, and he didn't know who she was, right? But she was trying to get information from him to see if he knew more than she did, so that she could kind of figure out who's sending this stuff, and are they trying to set me up? So when she gets drawn into that guy's world, we're introduced to his friends and his stepbrother and his cousins, and And at first I was just like, why? Why do we need to know all these people? It's too many people to keep up with, too many people being introduced. But turns out they all played critical roles in the whole story and what was going on. And while I think that it was a lot of convenience, you'll have to give it to the author for not leaving any stone unturned and making it plausible. Yeah, it was some hella convenient moments, like, okay, really, that's who that person came back to be. But I think the way that the story was written, it lent itself to that, because we start off with Marin, who is now going by Gwen, and she's just so isolated, except for this little weird quasi friendship she's developed with the guy at the pottery place, being pulled into this world where these cast of characters, kind of become like friends, and she gets close with them. And it wasn't until she got into that world and kind of opened herself up to be around other people was she really finally able to deal with her past. Okay. And there were probably like maybe 3 twists in the story. One I had kind of figured out early on, because I was like, that seems very sus. Another, I was like, whoa, because in my mind, I was wondering if something like that had ever happened. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but to realize that maybe Gwen was the catalyst for something that happened in the past, that was like kind of mind blowing. And then even at the end, realizing who some of the people were, like in the friend group or whatever. But I thought it was overall very riveting, very engaging. And that's the thing about books to me. I feel like, barring any, just page after page of grammatical errors or, things like that. If a book, which in itself, okay, let me say this, okay? Books are stories, okay? And they are designed, number one, to grab the reader's attention, to get the reader so engrossed and lost in the story that there's parts of where you can feel you're there, or that you know the characters. You can visualize what's going on. It requires, a suspension of belief. It's fantasy. It's, by its very nature, it's fiction, so it's not true. It's just like watching a movie. Like you've watched movies. Like I have watched movies that, and my daughter says this, she said this, and she kind of coined the phrase, because we watch a lot of movies together in our household, like not a lot, but like, we have movie nights at home, or we go to the theaters or whatever. And she said that some movies are so bad that they're good, and I feel like for me, there have been books like that, no, they're not like award winning. They're not the best literature. They're not something that's going to be profound, but engaging, engrossing, fast paced, had a few jaw dropping moments, made you laugh, made you mad, made you like, okay, am I going to have bad dreams, and things like that. And I feel like this book, it fit the bill. I feel like Haven't Killed in Years, it fit the bill in all those ways. Like I said, there was a lot going on. There were a lot of characters. So if you're just looking for a book where, it's just, they introduce 3 or 4 characters and that's the story throughout, that's not what this book is. But again, I still feel like it was enjoyable enough for me to lose myself, for a few hours. I think I finished this in one day. Let me see, how many pages does it have? 360. So maybe I started it, like, let's say I started it on a Tuesday at 11 o'clock, started reading it. Maybe read for an hour or so, then later in the afternoon read for an hour or so, and, finished it up like the next day, maybe later in the evening. So maybe 36 hours. But again, I enjoyed it. And if you do like fast-paced thrillers, if you like books with a lot of characters, books with past, present tense, books that you're not going to guess all of the twists. I mean, you may have a clue on some of them, but you just want to lose yourself in, something for a day or two, then I personally recommend Haven't Killed in Years by Amy K. Green. If you have read Haven't Killed in Years, I would love to know your thoughts. Did you think it was too convoluted? Were you able to follow it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video. And if you have not already done so, go ahead and take this opportunity to subscribe to my channel and then share it with someone who you think might like my content. Still a ways off from the 2,000 subscribers, but I got faith in you guys. Thanks again. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.